The cruelest thing I ever did to my children was stop calling them, and it was the best decision I made at 90. I know how that sounds. But if your kids never visit, never call, never show up unless you beg, then you need to hear what happened when I finally stopped reaching out. Last Thanksgiving, I set a table for 8, spent 3 days cooking. My daughter blamed traffic. My son sent a turkey emoji. I stood alone that night, scraping untouched food into the trash, whispering to myself, when did I become someone my own children avoid? What I'm about to share isn't advice from a therapist or a book. It's what 90 years of loving, losing, and finally choosing myself taught me, something no one tells mothers who give everything and get silence in return. Stay with me. Because the moment I stopped chasing my children is the moment they finally came back. If you've ever sat waiting for a call that never came, comment 1. If you think a mother should never stop reaching out, comment 0. I raised 5 children. Let me say that again. 5. 2 boys, 3 girls, and I didn't raise them from the sidelines. I was in it every single day for decades. I was the mother who showed up to every school play, even when I had a fever and could barely stand. I packed lunches every morning for years, not the quick kind, the kind with little notes tucked inside because I wanted them to open that bag and feel loved in the middle of a loud cafeteria. I drove carpool until my back ached. I sat through baseball games in the rain. I learned how to braid hair 3 different ways because each daughter wanted something different. When my son Danny got into trouble at 16, I was the one who drove 2 hours in the middle of the night to pick him up. No lecture, just a warm car and a mother who showed up. When my youngest, Lisa, went through her divorce, I flew across the country and slept on her couch for 3 weeks. I cooked, I cleaned, I held her while she cried. I didn't ask for thank you. I didn't need one. That's what mothers do. And I'm not saying this to complain. I'm saying this because I need you to understand something. I was never the kind of mother who disappeared. I was always there, always available, always one phone call away. For 40 years, if any of my children needed anything, at any hour, I picked up. I showed up. I gave whatever I had, sometimes more than I had. But here's what nobody prepares you for. There comes a day when the phone stops ringing, not all at once. It's slow, like a tide pulling back so gently you don't even notice until you're standing on dry sand. The calls that used to come every Sunday became every other week, then once a month, then only when they needed something, a recipe, a signature, a favor. I remember one afternoon, sitting in my kitchen, realizing I hadn't heard my daughter Karen's voice in 3 weeks, not because we fought, not because something happened. She was just busy. They were all just busy. And I understood that, I truly did. They have jobs, children of their own, lives that move faster than mine. I never blamed them for growing up. But understanding it and feeling it are 2 very different things. You can understand why your children don't call and still feel the silence like a weight on your chest. You can forgive them for forgetting and still cry when you hear other mothers talk about Sunday dinners with their families. You can tell yourself it's normal and still whisper in the dark, do they even think about me? I didn't need grand gestures. I didn't need them to rearrange their lives. I just wanted one thing, a sign, any sign, that I still had a place somewhere in their world, not the center. I gave that up long ago. Just a corner, a small, quiet corner where they remembered I existed, where calling me wasn't a chore they put off until guilt made them dial. My neighbor Jean once told me, "Catherine, you gave them roots and wings. The wings worked." She meant it kindly, and she was right, but nobody tells you what it feels like to watch those wings carry them so far away that you can barely see them anymore. Nobody warns you that the house you filled with noise and laughter and chaos for 40 years will one day go so quiet that the ticking of the kitchen clock becomes the loudest sound in your life. I didn't need someone to take care of me. I could still cook, still drive, still tend my garden. What I needed was simpler and harder than all of that. I needed to still matter. And the terrifying truth I was beginning to face was this: maybe I didn't. Not the way I used to, not the way I needed to. That realization didn't come all at once. It crept in slowly, like cold air through a cracked window, and once I felt it, I couldn't unfeel it. So I did what most mothers do when they feel the distance growing. I tried harder. I became what I call the useful mother. The one who finds reasons to stay relevant. The one who offers before anyone asks. I thought if I could just be helpful enough, needed enough, they'd keep me close. I started small. I'd call on Mondays just to check in. Karen would answer, but I could hear her typing in the background. "Uh-huh, Mom. Yeah, that's nice." 5 minutes then. "I gotta go, Mom. Meeting starting." Click. Danny was worse. He'd let it ring to voicemail. Sometimes he'd text back hours later. "Sorry, Mom, crazy day. Talk soon." Soon never came. So I tried gifts. I sent packages for the grandchildren, clothes I'd picked out carefully, books I thought they'd love. I got a text from my daughter-in-law once. "Thanks, Catherine. Kids loved it." Catherine. Not Mom, not even a phone call, just my name typed with one thumb while she did something else. Then I tried food. That was always my language. I'd spend a whole day making pot roast, Lisa's favorite, drive 40 minutes to her house, and stand on her porch holding a warm dish like some kind of offering. She'd open the door, take the dish, kiss my cheek, and say, "You didn't have to do that, Mom." But she never invited me in. Not once did she say, "Stay for dinner." Not once did she say, "Come sit with us." I tried organizing family dinners. I'd call weeks in advance, find a date that worked for everyone, plan the menu around allergies and preferences I'd memorized for decades. The first time, 2 out of 5 showed up. The second time, 1. The third time, Karen called an hour before and said, "Something came up, Mom. Next time, okay?" There was no next time. I even tried money. I'm not proud of that. But when you're desperate to feel wanted, you'll try anything. I'd slip checks into birthday cards, offer to help with mortgage payments, pay for the grandkids' activities. They took the money. They always took the money. But it didn't buy me a seat at the table. It bought me a thank you text and more silence. Each attempt taught me the same lesson, and I was too stubborn to learn it. The more I reached out, the less they reached back. The more I offered, the less they valued. The more available I made myself, the easier I became to postpone. I wasn't a person to them anymore. I was a standing appointment they kept rescheduling. There's a particular kind of pain that comes from being taken for granted by the people you would die for. It's not sharp like grief. It's not loud like anger. It's quiet. It sits in your chest like a stone you carry everywhere but can't put down. You smile through it. You tell your friends everything's fine. You tell yourself they're just busy. They still love you. It's not personal. But late at night, when the house is dark and the only sound is that kitchen clock ticking, you know the truth. You've become optional. A name in their phone they scroll past. A visit they'll get to eventually. A mother who will always be there, so there's no rush. I remember the moment it hit me hardest. I'd left a voicemail for Danny on his birthday, sang the whole song into the phone like I'd done every year since he was born. He texted back the next day, not even on his birthday. The next day. Ha, thanks, Mom. Classic. 2 words and an emoji. 45 years of birthday songs reduced to ha, thanks, Mom. That night, I sat in my chair by the window and cried. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet tears running down a face that had smiled through decades of putting everyone else first. And somewhere in that stillness, a thought formed that I couldn't push away. Maybe the problem wasn't that they forgot me. Maybe the problem was that I had made it so they never had to remember. If you've tried everything and still felt invisible, comment 1. If you believe persistence always pays off, comment 0. I need to tell you about Sarah, because Sarah is the reason everything changed. Sarah moved in next door about 2 years ago, young woman, early 30s, raising a little girl on her own, Emma, 5 years old, brown curls, missing her 2 front teeth, and the kind of laugh that makes you remember what joy sounds like. They were quiet at first, polite waves across the fence, a nod when we checked the mail at the same time, nothing more. Then, one Saturday morning, I was sitting on my porch with coffee, watching the birds the way you do when you've run out of people to talk to, and I heard this tiny voice. "Excuse me, Miss Catherine, can I sit with you?" I looked down, and there was Emma standing at the bottom of my porch steps, holding a stuffed rabbit by one ear. No invitation, no arrangement. She just wanted to sit with me. I said, "Of course, sweetheart." She climbed up, sat in the chair next to mine, and started telling me about a caterpillar she'd found in the yard. That was it. No agenda, no obligation. Just a little girl who thought the old lady next door might be interesting enough to visit. I can't tell you what that did to me. When was the last time someone came to my door simply because they wanted to be near me? Not because I asked, not because I cooked, not because I guilted them, just because they wanted to. Sarah came looking for Emma a few minutes later, embarrassed, apologizing. "I'm so sorry. She just wanders," I told her. "Don't you dare apologize. She just made my whole week." After that, it became a thing. Emma would come over most afternoons. Sometimes Sarah would join. We'd sit on that porch, drink lemonade, watch Emma chase butterflies. Sarah would tell me about her day, and I'd listen. Sometimes I'd share a story, and she'd actually lean in, not checking her phone, not looking at the clock, just listening the way people used to. One evening, Sarah said something that stopped me cold. She said, "Catherine, Emma talks about you all the time. She told her teacher you're her best friend. A 5-year-old called me her best friend, and my own children hadn't called me in weeks. I'm not telling you this to make you feel sorry for me. I'm telling you because Sarah and Emma taught me something that 50 years of motherhood didn't. They taught me what willing presence looks like. They showed up because they wanted to, not because I begged, not because I sent gifts or cooked meals or left voicemails. They just came, freely, naturally, the way love is supposed to work. And that's when I understood the pattern. For years I had been chasing my children, calling first, texting first, planning first, offering first. I thought I was being a good mother, but what I was actually doing was removing every reason for them to come to me on their own. I filled every silence before they could feel it. I answered every question before they could ask it. I showed up so reliably that my absence never crossed their minds. Sarah never chased me. Emma never needed a reason to knock on my door. And yet they were the most consistent, most genuine presence in my life. That's when the idea started forming, not a trick, not manipulation. Something much simpler and much harder than that. What if I stopped? What if I just stopped reaching out and let the silence speak for itself? What if I gave my children the one thing I'd never given them before, the chance to miss me? It terrified me, because what if I stopped calling and no one ever called back? What if the silence I created became permanent? What if the answer to "Do my children care" turned out to be the one answer I couldn't survive? But I looked at Emma's little face, at Sarah laughing on my porch, at this beautiful, unforced life growing right next door, and I thought, if a 5-year-old can show up without being asked, maybe it's time I stopped asking. So I did it. On a Tuesday morning in March, I made a decision. No more calling first. No more texting first. No more invitations. No more packages. No more driving 40 minutes with pot roast. No more being the one who always, always, always reaches out. I put my phone on the kitchen counter and I walked away from it. The first week was the hardest thing I've done in 90 years, and I've buried a husband. My fingers hovered over that phone 100 times. Every morning I'd wake up and think, just one quick call to Karen, just to hear her voice. But I didn't. I sat with the discomfort the way you sit with a toothache, knowing that touching it will only make it worse. The second week, I started to breathe, not because the pain was gone, but because I began filling the space with something other than waiting. I went back to my garden, really went back to it, not just pulling weeds between phone checks. I read 3 books that week. I had Sarah and Emma over for dinner twice. I baked bread for the first time in years, not for my children, for myself, because I wanted the smell of fresh bread in my own kitchen, for my own pleasure. Week 3, something shifted inside me. I stopped counting the days since anyone called. I stopped checking my phone first thing in the morning. I started waking up and thinking about what I wanted to do that day, not who might contact me. For the first time in years, my happiness wasn't attached to someone else's schedule. Week 4, the guilt crept in. That old familiar voice whispering, "What kind of mother stops calling her own children?" I sat with that too, and I answered it. The kind of mother who spent 45 years calling and got turkey emojis in return. The kind who's earned the right to be missed. Then, 6 weeks in, my phone rang on a Sunday evening. It was Karen. "Mom, are you okay? You haven't called." I could hear something in her voice I hadn't heard in years. Concern, real concern, not the polite kind, the scared kind. I kept my voice steady and said, "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just been busy living." She paused. A long pause. Then, "Can I come over this weekend?" I said yes, and I meant it, but I didn't cry until after I hung up. Danny called 2 days later, then Lisa, then the other 2, one by one, like dominoes falling in slow motion. "Mom, is everything all right? We haven't heard from you." Each time I said the same thing. "I'm wonderful, just been taking care of myself for a change." Within 2 months, I saw more of my children than I had in the previous 2 years. Not because I tricked them, not because I manipulated them, but because for the first time they felt the weight of my absence. For years I had filled every silence with my voice. When I finally stopped, they heard the quiet, and it scared them more than any words I ever said. "Here's what I need you to understand. This wasn't a game. I didn't stop calling to punish them. I stopped calling because I realized something that changed everything. You cannot make someone want to see you, but you can stop making it so easy for them not to. When you're always available, you become invisible. When you step back, you become real again, not because you're withholding love, because you're finally giving it to yourself. And that, at 90 years old, was the most important lesson I ever learned. not how to be a better mother, how to stop forgetting that I was a person too. I want to be honest with you. The story doesn't end with a movie scene where all 5 children show up at my door with flowers and apologies, and we cry and hug, and everything is perfect. Life isn't a movie. Some of my children call more now, some still forget. Danny visits once a month, which for Danny is a miracle. Karen brings the grandkids on Sundays sometimes. Lisa still lives far away, but she calls, really calls, not the distracted kind, the kind where I can hear her breathing and paying attention. It's not perfect, but it's honest, and honest is better than performing. Because here's what I learned in those quiet weeks when the phone didn't ring. The problem was never that my children didn't love me. The problem was that I had built my entire sense of worth around being needed by them. Every meal I cooked, every gift I sent, every voicemail I left, it wasn't just love, it was a question. Do you still need me? Am I still important? Do I still matter? And when the answer was silence, I crumbled, because I had nothing else to stand on. The cruel move wasn't stopping the calls. The cruel move was what I'd been doing to myself for years, begging for a seat at a table I had built with my own hands, asking for permission to matter from people who didn't realize they were withholding it. So I built something else. I built a life that didn't depend on a phone ringing. I built mornings with coffee on the porch, and afternoons with Emma, and evenings with Sarah where we'd laugh until our stomachs hurt. I joined a book club at the library. I started walking every morning, not for exercise, for the pleasure of watching the neighborhood wake up. I became a person again, not just a mother waiting to be remembered. And here's the thing nobody tells you. When you stop chasing people and start building your own peace, something strange happens. The people who truly care will notice. They'll feel the shift. They'll come looking, not because you tricked them, but because your absence finally made them realize what your presence had always meant. The ones who don't come back, well, that tells you something too. And as much as that hurts, it's better to know than to spend another decade performing for an empty audience. This Thanksgiving, I set a table for 4. Me, my sister Jean, Sarah, and little Emma. Every chair was filled, every plate was warm, and nobody had to be convinced to come. Emma said grace. She thanked God for mashed potatoes, butterflies, and, I quote, Miss Catherine, who always lets me sit in the big chair. I laughed so hard I nearly knocked over my water glass. That's peace, not the absence of pain, not the perfect family reunion, just a table where everyone chose to be there. I hope you find your quiet morning. Your Sarah, your little Emma knocking on the door just because she wants to sit with you. I hope you find the courage to stop chasing and start living, because your peace should never depend on someone else's schedule, and your worth was never measured by how many people called you back. I didn't need them to take care of me. I needed to stop forgetting to take care of myself. If you want to sit with me again, I'll be here. Still learning, still protecting my peace, still figuring out this beautiful, stubborn business of growing old on my own terms. Subscribe so we can keep talking. If this story reminded you of someone you love, comment 1. If you think a mother should never stop calling first, comment 0.